moving forward from the e-commerce space and the e-commerce policy, we of course have the data privacy bill. The data privacy bill, the latest update has been that it might just be tabled in the monsoon session this year, which is in 2 to 3 months. Sorry, 3 to 4 months. Yeah, sorry. So if that bill is tabled this year, that is going to be again a culmination of a process which has been going on, I think, since 2017 or 2016 now. So 6 long years, we've had, I don't even know, 3 to 4 drafts of the data privacy bill. We've had multiple, committee reports. We've had too many public consultations, etc. So the new draft, which was introduced in December 2022, that's the latest draft that we have. That was a completely different draft from what we've seen before, and the anticipation, the expectation is that in the monsoon session this year, we'll see that draft finally being tabled in the parliament. Again, take that with a pinch of salt, because on one hand, the government says that, we do want to introduce it in the monsoon session of the parliament. On the other hand, it does not necessarily have the consensus or the support of every party, of every stakeholder that should have it. Case in point is the Parliamentary Standing Committee on IT. Now, the Parliamentary Standing Committee on IT is supposed to look at the draft and approve it before it's passed in the parliament. I mean, it's not mandatory, but it's a strong expectation that the committee will approve the new law before it's passed in the parliament. And as of now, the Standing Committee on IT has not approved this bill. So depending on how long that process takes, the timeline may move forward from the monsoon session. Data privacy bill, now we don't have the time to go into entirely what a data privacy bill tries to do, but I'll give you a very, very brief overview of what it does. The first thing it does is that it gives the data processors and the data fiduciaries, we call them, anyone essentially who is processing, any company or any person who is processing your data or my personal data for any reason whatsoever. It provides a ground for collection and processing. The most obvious and it's the most mainstream one is, of course, consent. Yeah, so it lays down the guidelines of, in what circumstances consent is required for a ground of personal data, in what circumstances the consent can be deemed to be given, and what kind of consent do we have to give. It has to be specific, informed, freely given, and unambiguous. So it gives all the demarcations of consent. It also talks about the rights and duties of data principals. People like you and I who are giving our data to companies, we have certain rights. For example, we have a right to know what data has a company stored for us, what personal data, and how are they using it. So that's one right that the law gives us, the bill gives us. It also has thoughts about provisions on how the personal data has to be stored. Can the personal data be stored in India? Can it be stored abroad? In what circumstances can it be transferred abroad, etc., etc. It talks about that. And then, of course, it lastly talks about the data breaches. Like, for example, a technology company or any company has our data and there's a breach. A third party comes in and, breaches the security of that company. What are the consequences of that? Yeah. So what is supposed to be done? For example, the data fiduciary who had your data has to inform me and you, the data principals and the government, immediately that, that this has happened. Beyond that, there are certain other things they're supposed to do. So it's a very expansive law that talks about, in one line, talks about how my personal data has to be processed and controlled by a company. So that the timeline for that, which the government is now saying, is monsoon session this year. But as I said, there's a lot of work to be done, especially by the Parliamentary Committee on IT. There's no consensus on that. There were news reports recently, but then, of course, I think none of them are reliable on that end. So, I mean, that's on the data privacy end.